Welcome to the Inspired Action Podcast. This is where we have motivational, inspiring conversations and interviews that we hope you'll enjoy listening to. If you're interested in creating more balance in your life, understanding your 5-element energetic nature, finding the path of greatest ease,
or releasing the baggage of this lifetime and discovering ancient alchemy that can help you fly in your life, join us and other inspired actioneers on this alchemical transformational journey.
Welcome to the Inspired Action Podcast. My name is Jay, and this is Pod 38. I'm here with my co-host, Lita Herman.
Welcome back, Inspired Actioneers. Today we're going to continue our discussion on the 9 palaces, and we're going to try and take a bite out of the health palace today.
That's a food reference. Clever. I hope everyone is hungry for more. You know, Lita, this is such a big palace in everyone's lives, the health palace, and there's so many factors to it. But I think we need to spend a few podcasts on this topic like we're doing, and let's break it down to even more bite-sized bits of information.
Oh my God, you got to stop.
We'll see. We'll see. I don't know. I think I got a few more left in me.
But I do agree that people love this palace and love to talk about food with us because we're foodies, in case you haven't noticed yet in the podcast.
And we have a very unique perspective on food.
Yes. Very unique.
And, you know, my thoughts are always about nourishing the body. What do you put in? What is, the motivation? What is the determining factors of what you put in, whether it's water or food or supplements? You know, we've been doing this kind of food experiment for the past, at least 3, maybe 4 years now. We both lost a ton of weight. We found an awesome way that works for us, which is in alignment with Chinese medicine. And that's really important to Lita.
The way we personally eat is called a ketogenic diet, and I've learned that it's really not for everyone.
Yeah, let's say that again. We're going to say that a few times. The keto diet, as everyone calls it, is not for everyone. Not for everyone.
And that said, you can do some things that are similar to the keto diet, and you can, if you're looking to lose weight, you could lose weight, or if you're just doing it for health, it's a very healthy approach, but there are many healthy approaches to eating, and we're going to go over a lot of them today.
Yeah, one of our favorites is called the slow carb diet. We're going to talk about that. And when people ask me about keto, it's such a radical departure from the mainstream. In general, I don't really talk about it a lot. A lot of people, it takes time to explain it to people. So I like to talk about clean eating, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So you have to kind of think about, what are you putting in? Is it, a clean version of the food that you actually want? So you have to kind of clean up your food act a little bit.
You're on a roll.
Like a hot dog roll.
Well, except you don't eat bread.
Oh, yeah. So true. So true. Not even a gluten-free hot dog roll.
Right.
No.
Well, listen, I want to encourage all the listeners that if they haven't heard the previous episode, number 37, go back and listen to that one, because in that episode, I think we really set up this whole health palace really well. We identified the most important component to living healthy, and that is...
Drum roll, please.
A healthy mindset.
Yes, a healthy mindset.
And to live a life that you are affirming that you are in perfect health. And so you can trust that all the decisions you're making every day about taking care of yourself, all of those decisions you can trust.
I like to say, trust in the moment that you'll make the right decision. I think I write that on my big whiteboard in the office at least once or twice a week with clients, because it's so important.
Yeah, and doubt is like the worst thing for your health.
Yeah, doubt, that little word, but boy, it's big.
So to live a life where you resonate with the choices you make is what we're really talking about. And that's why the health palace belongs to the wood element. We haven't said this before yet, Jay. The wood element is in charge of decision making. So living a healthy lifestyle really requires so many choices and decisions on a daily basis.
Yeah, and I think, we have the wood element with the element of decision making, but we also have the water element, which is about trust.
Oh, yeah, that's
true.
So
if you have your water's kind of frozen, you can't really trust that you're going to make the right decision. So therefore, the wood element can't really shine and make those decisions.
Right.
So sometimes you can have some conflict there.
And the most important thing we want to do is offer suggestions that are supportive and not going to trigger your mistrust.
Absolutely.
So it's exciting, that each of us can kind of put forth good things we want to think about and not create doubt and fear, which triggers that water problem of not trusting.
Yeah, then of course triggers the wood. So there you go.
There you go.
And then you might not like yourself, and there you goes the fire.
Oh my goodness. And the metal.
Yes.
Boy, what a mess.
Yeah, so that if that means basically, if we're going to talk about organic food because that's something that resonates with us, that doesn't mean it resonates with you, and you shouldn't you should feel guilty if you're not eating organic. It's what works for you. You need to walk your own path in life, and that includes what you put in your body. So if you ask 10 people what to eat, guess what? You're going to get 10 different answers. You just need to find the trust that'll make you be comfortable with that right decision that's good for you.
That's awesome. I like that. So we already started this podcast, but we forgot to talk about all the fun things we're doing, Jay.
No, you mean when we're not actually podcasting?
Yes.
Well, why don't you talk a little bit about the Facebook group?
Yes. Well, if you are new to the podcast, there is a Facebook group. There's a Facebook page. And then from that page, you can get to the group and sign up. You can ask us questions. You can post a video of your walk if you're trying to figure out what element you are. It's a great way to interact. And you're always welcome also to send us questions at questions@inspiredactionpodcast.com.
That's right. And if we use your question on the air, which we're going to do a big show after the 9 Palaces, we will send you a free Inspired Action t-shirt. And guess what? We're going to send it to anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
In any size that you want.
That's cool. So that's cool.
So that's great. And then, we just also have our app going on, the Inspired Action app. So if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Well, we're really excited about that. That is an app that you can listen to the podcast. It's sometimes a little easier to listen with our app than with some of the other apps out there. And also we are adding meditations to it every day. We have a bunch scheduled coming soon. So we're very excited. And there
a lot more bonuses and stuff.
Bonus
surprises coming out.
Yeah. And so we have an option where you can get the premium content, which is some extra meditations that there are free meditations on there as well. So
we have a lot more announcements coming up soon on that. So that's great. So just keep listening. And if you want to listen to the podcast through our app, it's free.
And it's called Inspired Action Podcast.
That's great.
And it's available on iTunes and Google Play.
So, all right, let's go. Conversation about healthy ideas, healthy thoughts, new habits, perhaps.
Yes.
And then you can go out and decide what's good for you. And, I like to think about when you're trying to make changes, you know what? Change is a place to start to make changes. I know that sounds funny, but you have to change to make changes. And think about it. If you're not eating the way you want, then you have to start to make changes. And then the change will happen.
Yeah. And I want to start off by saying, not everyone wants to think about their own nutrition too much. Like some of us just don't have any earth element in us, and self-care is really rough. So, if you're trying to live a good lifestyle, a healthy lifestyle, and you see something that you hear something today that resonates with you, but you're just not the kind of person who's going to cook a lot or think too much about it, you could get a nutrition coach.
Yeah, they're out there. They're also nutritional coaches / chef, personal chef.
Yeah, and you could look for someone who shares the same ideas that you're interested in and that you resonate with.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later on for your homework. But when I work with people, there's some people that are different. Everyone's in a different place in their life. I have some people who, this one person I'm thinking about, and I know they listen to the podcast, so I'm not going to go into too much details, but they have like a challenge to eat healthy. They don't really know what to do. They don't have a lot of earth in them, like you just said.
Yeah, so earth is last.
Yeah, so even, you know who I'm talking about. Yeah. So even like eating like a healthy bowl of cereal with some almond milk, maybe some fruit in it, is even almost an impossible task.
Yeah, too much
so you
to
have
manage.
to be where you have to be and think about what are the simple strategies that even if you have to eat takeout because you don't cook or whatever, how's a healthy version of the takeout? And like we just said, a personal chef maybe, or there's a lot of companies now that can pre-make really healthy meals. So many options out there. It's really just amazing, actually, especially if you live in a bigger city. Yeah. There's a lot of people out there that are really trying to help people make better choices, better food choices.
I love that idea. I'm really lucky personally. I don't mind cooking, and I can pretty much take any recipe and make it awesome. And I do it virtually every day. And I find that cooking my own food feels healthier than eating out. So I only eat out a few times a week. Whereas before I ate out all the time due to lack of time to cook. But once I noticed that it was so much harder to get the clean food idea that we're talking about when eating out, then I was motivated to cook more. Again, that doesn't mean that you're going to be motivated to cook more. I have found restaurants that I think are in alignment with me, and those are the restaurants I frequent when I do go out.
Well, you touched on two things. One, when you cook yourself, guess what? You get to pick your own ingredients.
Yeah, that's
so you
amazing.
get to pick the freshest, the most organic, things that are really what you want in it, and so you don't have to ask people to take things out. And second, I think the big thing is time. People tell me all the time, the biggest deterrent is time. It gets blamed for bad food choices all the time. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I don't have enough time. I wish I had more time. If I had more time. It's always a big challenge, but for today, let's talk about that you do have the time. You want to get the passion going of clean eating and what that can really mean for you in your family, in your life.
I like that idea, the passion, because before I was eating out all the time, I didn't have a passion for cooking because I didn't really have a good reason.
Yeah.
And now I do have a passion for cooking because I really like to use clean ingredients.
Yeah.
And it inspired me to cook.
There you go. And it inspired people to eat healthier. Yeah. And I think when I talk to people about this kind of thing, they're like, just tell me what to do and what to get and where to get it, and I'll do it. Well, that's putting your fate in the hands of someone else. You need to figure this out for yourself. What do you like? What don't you like? What is easy? What do you have time to prepare? Yeah, if you have to spend all day Sunday making your meals and your snacks and your stuff for the whole week, then that's only a couple hours.
So I want to go back to this phrase clean eating because I think...
what does that mean for you?
Right. What I love about that phrase is you could be vegetarian, you could be paleo, you could eat meat, not meat, eat meat, you can eat all kinds of different ways. Vegan.
You can be pescatarian.
Yeah.
You can be... anything you want-tarian.
Yeah. And you're just choosing to kind of pick the healthiest version of those diets.
Yeah. And for me, the clean eating is the first thing you got to think about is to minimize, but ideally eliminate all the processed foods that you're taking in. As in all, like ALL. No, you shouldn't really be eating processed foods because...
like preservatives, right?
Yeah. They just add so many things that they, change the names or modify the names, and it's really hard to eat clean when you're eating processed foods. So that would mean switching to eating more healthy vegetables, healthy fruits, really try to get local meats that are not processed, but just simply clean and maybe, prepared from the local area. And for me, that includes basically I eat organic. I don't do any sweeteners, no funky oils. That's another big area.
Yeah.
All the different oils that things are added. No dyes, no additives. Just take the crap out that is not really needed. And then you can start down the healthier path. And your body will be much happier.
And that means reading a lot of the ingredient labels.
Oh, yeah. Especially in the beginning.
And I remember when I was starting on this way of eating, I really wanted some almond milk, and I've been drinking it for years. But when I really looked at what was in it, it had a lot of stuff in it, like guar gum and all this stuff. And I was
xanthan gum and thickeners and
I was like, I just want almond milk. So I started making my own. It was really hard. Hats off to anyone doing it. And then lo and behold, this new product showed up at my grocery store, and it was just almond milk, just almonds. I was like, thank God.
Plain and simple. Woohoo. Woohoo. That's what you want. And then you can make that decision. Do I really want almond milk?
Yes. And I was so relieved to not have to make that almond milk because when I spend time in the kitchen cooking, like I want to minimize that amount of time. I think I spend a lot, in general. I mean, it takes me at least an hour a day in the kitchen.
Yeah. And again, we're back to that time.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit.
Making almond milk was a little too much.
I mean, I did it once and I'm like, that was really cool. But do I want to do that once or twice a week? Mm-hmm. No. Or do you want to make like 5 gallons? No, it's a lot of work. But I do think that it tastes really good when you do it.
And then there's the fact that each of us is very individual. And some of us, clean eating means not eating things that other people can eat and be clean. So
yeah, and so there's also the allergy thing.
Right,
There's
like
so many
that's what I'm
food
getting at.
so many
Yeah.
food allergies. You know, some of the things that give up when people talk to me, they're like, I just cannot give up my bread no matter what. Look at Oprah. I'm not giving up my bread no matter what.
Well,
so
you were like that.
I was totally like that.
I never thought you would
I
give
was a
up bread.
gluten glutton for sure. I just love to eat it, and also rice. I didn't think I would ever be able to give up rice, but boy, I don't even miss them. I don't miss it at all. And so let's talk about that. All right, let's talk about your corn story.
Okay, so I
don't know. That doesn't really sound too interesting. Let's Lita's corn story. Does everyone have a corn story? Yeah, maybe. All right, let's go with the corn story.
I never thought I was allergic to corn, and I think allergy is a strong word to use, but I used to love corn chips especially, and I probably ate them several times a week. And for, I don't know, maybe a few years way back, I was eating gluten-free. And I thought I was doing really well. And I was eating corn chips a lot, like probably more than usual.
Like really nice corn chips,
Yeah.
right? Not like Fritos.
Yeah. And then a while
Like
back.
Fritos or not like Fritos?
No, just like tortilla chips.
Yeah, like really
Tortilla
nice.
chips. Yeah, like
okay.
So I had stopped eating them for quite some time. And after a few months, I went to this Mexican restaurant where they made their own corn chips. So, I mean, I had to eat those.
Sure. Why not? A couple ingredients. They were
Yeah.
handmade. Yeah.
I
sounds
think
amazing.
I only had 20 corn chips, which is a very few for me.
Is that like 20, like really 40? And I'm going to just say 20?
Probably.
Yeah.
I'm sure. So,
I take the number and double it. So,
well, anyway, to my surprise, I felt horrible that night. And the next day, too, my tummy hurt. I noticed my belly was really bloated and swollen. It's like a crazy reaction my body had. And I wasn't sure if it was the corn. So I tried it again. I had to try it again.
sure,
I
of
went
course.
back to the
For
same
research,
place.
right?
Yeah, for research for the listeners.
That's right. So we can actually have a corn story.
right. What's a corn story without having to do it several times?
That's right. Take it for the team.
Yeah, I took it for the team. But here's the thing. It did turn out to be corn. And it wasn't like exaggerated enough that my entire life I never noticed it. But it cleared up some surprising things that I had never noticed before. One was that I've had a history of like gaining a lot of weight overnight and then weighing myself and going, why am I like 8 pounds overweight? And
I think so. A lot of women have that.
And so I thought it was just that, but then I noticed it was from the corn.
So it could be inflammation, and maybe from the water retention of the salt, or maybe it's the inflammation from the corn.
I think it is. I think that I have a very subtle, like not big allergy, not enough for me to have really noticed before.
And it's not like completely debilitating,
No,
like
not
some
at
allergies
all.
are.
Not
But
at all.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
But the bloating in my body is a sign that my body doesn't like it. And that's what we're talking about with clean eating. A lot of these ingredients we listed are probably not great for pretty much everyone. But then there's also going to be ingredients that are just troublesome for you. Like a lot of people, it's gluten.
Yeah.
For me, not
Definitely.
so much the gluten. It's more the corn.
Yeah, for me, it's corn and wheat, meaning
Yeah,
the gluten.
you have
dairy,
more like a wheat thing.
sugar. I have a reaction to all of it. And, for someone else, it might be something different. Like you just said,
Yeah.
I did a lot of food experiments. I took a lot of them for the team, right?
Yes.
We all do. And then, you figure it out. And after a while, for me, I just made a choice and said, you know what, I think I'm done with this for now. I want to really give this a shot and give it a go. And boy, it's worked out really well. Never felt better.
So let's do an overview of some strategies and ideas in general that people may want to consider. And, if you feel like you're at a point in your life where you want to make some dietary changes, if not, you can just listen and see if there's anything interesting, new for you.
Wait, before you go any further, I just want to say the Health Palace is not just about food.
Yeah.
It's about, a lot of different factors. It's your first thing you said was the mindset. That's for sure.
Mindset. And the next podcast, we're going to do a section on sleep.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
And-
Sleep and nourishing the body. For me, when I talk about it, I like to talk about food, water, supplements, meaning what vitamins are you taking?
Sleep.
Sleep for
And
sure. Stress reduction, exercise,
meditation,
movement. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
pretty much the whole program there that we have kind of created that we live. So yeah, so it's a lot of things. But today, it always comes up. It's always food first because that
Food
seems to be
first.
the most logical and the easiest step.
I even have this theory that over the years, many people who come to me for the first time sort of pursuing some kind of alternative medicine, many of them have recently taken a look at their diet. And that's like the first part of sort of looking at a new healthy lifestyle.
Yeah. And for me, when I'm trying to make choices, I like to do a lot of research about different foods. I like to know what I'm going to eat. I try to find out where it's from if I can do that, but I realize like not everyone's really into that. They just want to be told what to do. But we'll put some of these in the show notes, not all of them.
We'll put links.
Yeah, because I want you to really make those decisions for yourself and find that passion for yourself, and that's how you get inspired to make your own actions. But I think we can just kind of put those in after the show notes, like you said. And how does that sound?
That sounds great. And there's one more important concept I think we just need to touch on before we go into specifics is it's nutrients.
Oh yeah. Nutrient dense is what I like to say.
Yeah. So remember the food pyramid when we were kids and they used to talk about it in school?
Yeah. I remember seeing that on the big poster, the big triangle.
Yeah. And a lot of food coaches and nutritionists out there still follow that philosophy. And I just looked it up today in preparation for this, and they did modify it somewhat. They now have vegetables being the highest category, the most that you're supposed to eat.
Well, what do you know? What a concept, right? That's perfect.
Awesome. But they still have grains, cereals, rice, and pasta as being the bulk of what you eat.
I say you throw that right out of the pyramid.
Yeah. So
you don't need it as a human. I mean, if you're into it and you just whatever, then fine. But I think if you're trying to eat clean and you're trying to reduce allergens and you're trying to reduce inflammation, that's got to go. Go.
Yeah. And so the idea behind the latest research in nutrition might turn that pyramid on its head.
Yeah, I say turn it right upside down and see what shakes out of it.
Yeah. And so it's really nowadays we're calling this macros. So macros is the percentages of food that you're eating. It's pretty much the pyramid idea. It's just a different many people are reordering the pyramid or turning it upside down and maybe not eating like very few grains. Or just
maybe do sprouted if you had to.
Yeah.
Sprouted grains, sprouted oatmeal. I just saw that the other day. I was like, I don't eat that, but if I did, that's what I would probably have. And then you could also do your sprouted nuts and seeds and grains. So yeah, that's definitely a healthier version.
And the biggest controversy is how much fat and oils should we be eating?
And there's no one source out there. No one agrees on anything. That's why we keep saying you got to have your own thoughts, your own brain. Right. You got to find out what resonates with you. And, I think the nutrient dense way, if you're going to eat healthy, you're going to eat clean, and you're not going to eat a ton of food, you got to pick the ones that have the most vitamins and the least amount of space.
Yeah. So if you look on the internet for nutrient dense foods, you might be surprised, rice is actually not that nutrient dense.
No, it doesn't break down in the body. You'd want to go with a quinoa, perhaps. And that does break down. If you're like, I just can't live without that grain, try the quinoa.
And
see if you can get it sprouted.
Oats have more than rice.
Yep, sprouted and try to, keep it clean. Maybe find out if there's any made locally in your area.
And if you're going to be eating food, do you really want to eat food that's completely devoid of any nutrients? Like a lot of junk food has nothing in it. And so or do you want to eat sardines?
Which is very high on the list of nutrient dense foods. I'm
laughing because I hate sardines.
Yeah, but if I had to, in an emergency, a can of sardines would be really super good choice.
But you don't have to eat sardines. There are many other really nutrient dense foods. Just for
some of your favorites.
Short list: kale, spinach, seaweed, liver, which is another one I just can't tolerate, but it's supposed to be really good. Egg yolks, strawberries, raspberries, blueberries, almonds, salmon, shellfish, many of the beans. My favorite is the black lentils.
The beluga.
So
if you're doing slow carb, that's an excellent choice.
They're almost like a superfood. They're so nutrient rich. Cauliflower, mushrooms, bok choy, the list goes on and on.
When you haven't even touched on the superfoods like acai, chlorella, spirulina, cacao, goji berry. That's a big one.
Well, everyone needs a little more cacao, I think.
That's right.
That's chocolate in case
put that
together.
And then they have chaga, green tea, maca, turmeric, coconut oil. Although that's kind of been controversial lately, but I love it. I can't live without it.
Yeah, and microgreens.
Yeah, that's my favorite. That's a lot of nutrients packed in little packages.
Yeah, and what's like ashwagandha? That's that one that
That's a root.
Into now.
It's a very good. They call that
From
Indian
India.
ginger.
Right.
Indian ginseng. Sorry. They call that Indian ginseng, I believe.
Yes. So I love that list. And whatever you're drawn to, it's about incorporating more of these highly nutritional foods into your diet. And it's especially important if, well, we're going to talk next about vegetarianism and vegan eating. And there are a lot of good people out there that are talking about how to really nourish yourself if you're not eating meat.
Yeah, and there's even keto people who do vegetarian. It's called Ketotarian.
Yes.
And there's a new book out about that. But I think, as you go through the life and you mature through, there's different chunks of time in your life when you do different things. Both Lita and I have been vegetarians. I was vegan for 5 years. A long time ago, but we
and I was
resonate
vegetarian for at least 15 years.
Yeah, we resonate with that in general. But, if you feel like eating meat isn't right for you because of the impact on the animals or the planet or for being just overall healthier, then that's a good idea for you. You have that right. You have that choice. I like to talk with people about this decision because our culture right now just isn't set up that well for vegetarians. It makes it a little more difficult, especially to be a vegan.
Yeah.
But there's a ton of meat substitutes. You just have to read the labels. Yeah, they have the same level.
It's not always great to just eat meat substitutes.
And the same thing with the gluten. Gluten-free is not necessarily even what you want. It could be worse.
They can have tons of like potato starch in it. And, all of these like substitute foods are sometimes like junk food, really.
Yeah, definitely. So you have to read the labels. And if there's something that you don't understand, look online. You'll get a definition.
Or look at a vegetarian culture that has a history of vegetarianism. Like a lot of Indian food, there's a large part of India that is mostly vegetarian. And so they have a lot of knowledge about how to eat these nutrients and different spices that are really like supplements.
Yeah, they don't rely heavily on meat.
Yeah. And so they've already figured out in the cultural cooking what's healthy for vegetarians.
Yeah, and I think no matter what diet that you pick, supplements are something that you should look at because you can't eat everything to get all the nutrients.
Right.
So you can supplement a little bit. That's why it's called supplements.
Right.
Again, pick healthy ones though. They now have, you can go online and you can pick the corn-free, gluten-free, no sugar added, no non-GMO, and you can get the vitamins, the supplements, exactly what you're in alignment with.
And we have a few people that we're going to put in the show notes that might be interesting for you to look at or read about in terms of vegetarianism and veganism.
Slow carbism.
Yeah. We're not going to go into
ketoism.
Huge details. It's more like today is about a discussion of different ideas.
Yeah. And you know what? You asking yourself better questions.
Yeah.
Don't just go with that, what do I want to eat? Figure out why.
Right.
Start to think, why?
And people might want to know, like for me, why I stopped being a vegetarian was I had started studying Chinese medicine. And in Chinese medicine, there's not necessarily a need to eat large quantities of meat. In fact, if you go to China, which I've done several times now, the vegetables are a huge part of the meal. And then there's a couple like small meat dishes. So the amount of meat we eat in the U.S. Is probably way more. And so
there's usually one fish thing on the menu in China.
That's true. And so, we in Chinese medicine are thinking a lot about what are those nutrients that meat brings. And especially in Chinese medicine, it's for your blood. And so you can get you can get that out of vegetables as well. And so for my vegetarian clients, I often recommend a product, which I'll put in the show notes, called Floridex, which is basically all of the really great nutrients for your blood in a drink.
And you have to just read the label because they have different versions.
Yes.
There's some with sugar, some with more vegetables than fruits. There's different ones. So find one that works for you.
And I don't promise that it tastes good.
Yes, that gives you the nutrients that you're lacking in your other food.
Yeah. And this is for people who might be slightly anemic or what we call blood deficient. And that means your tongue will be pale. You might feel cold. You might feel tired and weak all the time. This is a sign that if you're eating vegetarian, you're not getting the nutrients you need. And you should either see a Chinese medicine practitioner who could do something called moxibustion for you, which is great for blood deficiency.
Maybe get herbs.
Yeah, you can take Chinese herbs if you don't want to do the Floridex. And you could also add meat to your diet. And I know that's really difficult for a lot of vegetarians that feel very strongly about how they eat. So that's not necessary. But that is why in case you wanted to know, I decided it was a very hard decision to give up my vegetarianism. And I decided there was enough local, very well, raised meat in this area where I live. And so I felt like I could make that move for my health. But
it's humane and sustainable and all those great things. Yeah. So again, you have to make your own decisions on what you're in alignment. So what are some other dietary ideas that we could talk about?
So we've been reading a lot about these days about eating healthy and paying more attention to how we feel when we eat. And so the other thing we wanted to bring up was, how do you feel after you're eating grains or sugar? And do you get tired and want to lie down?
Or even dairy. I think that's the big three.
Sometimes dairy, yeah.
Sugar, grains, dairy.
Yeah. And so back in my 20s, I first noticed that I started getting sleepy after lunch at work. And I would go to lunch and eat a lot of fruit or sugar or grains. And I would literally just go back to the office and my eyes.
I think everybody who eats that kind of conventional diet does that. They have that crash.
Right. Well, not everyone. I do think there are more people who are more sensitive. And certainly as you get older, it can be more so.
Yeah.
Because I think children and young adults need carbohydrates in their bodies to grow.
And to have their brains firing.
Yeah. It's really important, actually.
When they get older, they can decide how they want to eat. But yeah, you can't, usually you don't put children on any kind of restrictions for that. But I do think that some plain sugar is not good, like soda and candy.
Oh, and that
really
reminds me
bad
of the
processed
Magic
foods.
Pill. The movie, The Magic Pill.
Let's talk about that movie. There's two movies we wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
I had on my list the sugar movie.
Yes. Also really good and important. But the Magic Pill talked about children.
Yes.
And it wasn't saying that children shouldn't have any starches or carbohydrates. But what they did was they took away sugar and a lot of the bread and rice and the low nutrient dense foods and put them more on sweet potatoes and things like that in terms of carbohydrates.
Maybe maple syrup was the sweetener.
Yeah. Like a paleo diet, where there is an emphasis on less grains and less sugar and things like that.
Yeah, I think it's important to do a little research if you're really trying to make changes and see what fits you.
Yeah.
But those two movies are entertaining, a little bit shocking, and very knowledgeable.
And the Magic Pill movie has I've mentioned to a bunch of people, and even in some cases has inspired people who are vegetarian to eat a little bit of meat. So beware, if you're vegetarian, you might get swayed. The sugar movie was just astonishing. It's about a guy who eats the daily average.
He starts in Australia and then he comes to the U.S.
And it's shocking. It's really a fantastic movie.
I'm pretty certain that one Jamba Juice is your whole day.
The whole day's average.
Yeah. Or one of those giant Starbucks frappa latte cappuccino-y things is like your whole day.
Right. And recently when we were in China, I noticed that in the 3 years since I'd been there prior, I noticed that the Chinese in general, compared to the 3 years prior, seemed to be gaining weight. I mean, they weren't obese, but they were round around the middle. And I wondered if it's that Starbucks is on every corner.
Oh my God, they're everywhere.
They are everywhere in all the cities in China. And I'm wondering, if the Chinese who ate very little sugar, I mean, you can't even find hardly a dessert in sort of the ancient cultural food pyramid.
Certainly nothing you're going to write home about.
No.
But they do like pastry puffy things.
Yeah, but they're not that sweet. They're usually sweetened like bean paste. And suddenly they're eating a lot of sugar. And so if people are really drinking Starbucks, and it is the Chinese that are in the Starbucks we went into.
Oh, yeah, it's packed.
We just noticed that it is having an impact on their weight gain.
I think that they're going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Like, hey, don't do that. But no, they're
Anyway, so that's the sugar movie.
yeah, and the magic pill.
And
So
the
both
magic
of those. And if you have any more suggestions, please let us know in the group. That'd be awesome. If you have any of the
Yeah, great movies.
suggestions you
That's
want.
great. And both are available on Netflix. So if you do Netflix.
Hey, no one's done a slow carb movie yet. Let's talk a little bit about the slow carb diet.
Yeah, that's
we
a great
did it for
idea.
a year and a half, and we kind of used each other for accountability and definitely experimented on different food choices, and it was kind of fun for a while.
Yeah, so the slow carb diet is available, to read about it, in a book called The 4-Hour Body by Tim Ferriss. And I'm not sure if he created it or...
I think he created the protocols for it, but now it's kind of has its own life.
Yeah.
So if you Google slow carb diet or slow carb diet based on 4-Hour Body, you will get just mountains of people who have really, really embraced it.
And for me, it was like pretty radical because giving up all grains and potatoes, which I love, my favorite food of all time, and I gave it up. And then, but what was cool about the diet was 1 day a week, and I think we mentioned this on the earlier podcasts, 1 day a week, you could eat whatever you wanted.
Yeah, we called it Magic Day.
Magic Day. And I ate whatever I wanted, which happened to be chocolate croissant.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
I would eat like 2 or 3 in a day on my Magic Day. And Jay,
I
what
would
did
have
you
pizza
eat?
and pretzels and gluten.
Pretzels, you love pretzels.
We have an amazing bakery in town, and so I would go there and get one pretzel and maybe a little pizza and all different things, and you could just have whatever you want. And that one day, you kind of built back your carbs and you brought up your stores of all the different energy.
And you kind of reset your body too.
Yeah.
So there is an advantage to doing it that way. And I do also think it helped. I think I mentioned this when we talked about it earlier in the podcast. It really helped me with my cravings.
Yeah, I think me too, because I do not crave pizza and gluten overall or rice or sugar. It's crazy. It's really crazy that I do not miss it at all.
And my theory is that because my entire life I'd never really given myself permission to eat those things. And by giving myself permission 1 day a week to eat whatever I wanted and feeling completely free about it, somehow I lost the emotional issues around it.
Yeah, no more having to grab a pint of Ben and Jerry's every time something dramatic happened or whatever.
Well, actually, I'd feel so yucky after Magic Day. I stopped wanting Magic Day to come.
Yeah, and so then, and it says, when you read about it, that you have to embrace the Magic Day. You don't want to skip it because as part of that protocol. And I think that kind of was how we moved on to the different way to eat, the clean eating, the ketogenic diet, because, it was a learning curve on the slow carb diet. There's a learning curve on the ketogenic diet. On any diet or any lifestyle change that you're going to make, you have to kind of look at it as, beginning, the middle, and then the lifestyle change.
And we're still learning. And both of us, like Jay said, we lost tons of weight. But I think even more importantly, we felt, at least I feel, this immense shift in energy. What about you, Jay? Your moods?
Energy, moods, brain fog, all better. Definitely improved. I wake up sharp and clear, and I love that feeling.
That, to me, is the most important thing. If I, go to a restaurant and I get some funky food, sometimes you never know, and the next day I wake up and my eyes feel heavy, and I had lived like that for so many years, and now I don't have that anymore. That motivates me to keep going.
Yeah, I think so, too. I think now, after a couple of years of this, when you go out and you do, or you go to a party or someone brings something to your house, even though they know that you don't eat it, sometimes it gets in there and then you can tell right away. I think even before the next morning, for me, you recognize these old ways. You're like, wow, I do not miss that. And that's when you have some kind of challenge, some kind of, your body's like going, no.
Yep.
You're not supposed to have this because you don't feel well.
So keto, works for us, but
not for everyone.
Yeah, we're really into it, and it requires a lot of work, a lot of learning, a lot of monitoring, a lot of being careful when you're out eating. So it's really not for everyone. So we really stopped, pushing it on anyone. Not that I ever did, but just really stopped talking too much about it. And mostly we recommend slow carb to people who want to experiment.
Definitely. And, there's tons of books out there and articles and podcasts. So educate yourself. Find out what works for you, no matter what you choose.
Yeah. And if you're that person with Earth Last and you just don't want to think about it, get a coach. Get a keto coach or a slow carb coach or somebody who just helps you get going.
Yeah, I think that's really good
Or
advice.
a vegetarian coach. I mean, there are lots of different ideas of how to eat out there. And
I will say I don't like to talk about it too much with people who really don't have any idea what it's about. I will say it is not a great way to live on this kind of diet if you're not all in. You must commit to it. It's a lifestyle change. It's not a fad diet. Your body will not be happy if you keep going in and out of ketosis.
Oh, we haven't explained that yet. Yeah, ketosis is what you're trying to achieve when you eat a keto diet, and that's the major difference.
And it's not the ketoacidosis of diabetes.
Right. It's actually a positive state. It means that your mind is fueled by fat instead of carbohydrates. And it's a state that you work to get into and you can come out of it. And when you come out of it, you feel logy and tired. And when you're in it, you feel really alert and really
sharp.
And
you're not hungry.
And you're not as hungry.
And you're making your own energy source by eating fat for fuel.
Right. But the reason that we don't recommend it to people, because if you go in and out of it all the time, like, oh, I'm eating keto today and maybe tomorrow, but then I'm going to a party on Saturday, so I'm going to eat.
I'm going to have a couple drinks.
Yeah. It's not a great diet for people like that.
No, it really actually is not. It's actually kind of dangerous.
Yeah.
And like I said, if you read the book, the Tim Ferriss book, he'll talk a little bit more. There's also videos on it. Different things.
He talks about the ketogenic diet in the 4-hour book.
Yeah, he also does videos on it, and there's a lot of people, Dom D'Agostino, and there's just a whole cadre of different people who are on the keto diet or slow carb or whatever they're on. So just take a look out there. And I think that if you're really looking to find an easier step than ketogenic diet, the slow carb is a fantastic way to take that step of the clean eating. I loved it when I was on it.
So, okay. So that, I think that's enough on keto, right?
Sure. And I'll just give a couple quick tips on overall. Mm-hmm. Drink tons of water, eat enough protein, count your macros no matter what you do. Yeah. Count what you put into your body, or at least monitor it.
Yeah.
And then if you're going to do something like the ketogenic diet, you have to get one of those little blood monitor kits. I like the Keto Mojo. It's inexpensive. Yep, it's super easy to use. And you can actually test your blood with a little stick. You prick it and put the blood on it and test it in the monitor, and you can tell when you're in ketosis.
Yeah. And I'll also put in the show notes, we have a keto Facebook group. And we don't do a lot in it yet, but if there's a lot of interest from the Inspired Actioneers, we could put more in there. I started writing down a lot of the ideas that we found, and through Jay's research, how we designed what we're doing, and in hopes that we can help other people, because people who are really seriously interested in it, it's very confusing in the beginning.
Yeah, and the Health Palace is not just about food. Look at your sleep. Look at your media consumption, your stress level, the people around you. What are their stress levels like? Mm. How's their healthy food choices? What vitamins are you taking? Are you taking any? And of course, we didn't even touch on exercise and movement and meditation.
Yeah.
The whole mind, body, spirit. We're going to go to that next. So I encourage everyone to be inspired. Seek out the balance that works for you. Find someone to make the changes with. Get a partner, some kind of accountability partner, and find what works for you, whether that's food, water, vitamins, exercise, movement, sleep, lower stress, education. I can go on and on and on and on and on. Woo! I love it. I could talk about it all day.
For homework, one of the things that people can look at is if they want to make a change in their diet, they could find an accountability partner. And all that means is someone that you're going to talk this through, check in on each other.
Yeah, ask questions with each other.
Yeah.
Hey, what are you reading? I'm reading this. Yeah. What did you do on Magic Day? What did you, or whatever you're doing. Yeah. It helps. It really helps, especially if you have a partner who's not interested, or children who are not interested, or people who just don't want to make changes and you want to make changes.
Yeah, so you have to ask a friend.
And nowadays that friend can be anywhere in the world.
Yeah, because we've got the Inspired Actioneers Facebook group.
That's
so
great.
Reach out and see if you can find someone who wants to do it with you.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to end. So keep sending us questions to questions@Inspired Action Podcast. We read them all. Please, if you have a second to rate and review this podcast, you really do matter. You make a difference. The more people you hear about this little podcast, the better. The merrier we all get. And Lita, I just want to tell you, we have now listeners in Finland.
Oh,
yeah,
that's cool.
We're climbing the charts in Finland.
Welcome aboard.
Yes. So people are really listening and digging all over the world. So that's it for today. Thanks for listening, and we'll do the Health Palace again next week.
Yes.
You've been listening to the Inspired Action Podcast, and you've reached the end. Woohoo! Why not celebrate a little bit and click that subscribe button right there. We love having you with us on this journey, and we want it to continue.
You can also rate and review this podcast. And if you have already, thank you so much. We read all reviews, and your reviews help other people find this podcast as well. You can also be a part of this podcast yourself by submitting a voice recording message and emailing it to us at lita@inspiredactionpodcast.com or jay@inspiredactionpodcast.com.
And if you want, you can join our Facebook group or follow us on Instagram.
Join us next week for another Inspired Action conversation. And thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening, and remember to hug the dog.